there's still stuff in Revelations that people may have not clicked onto significance.
This is dkdynamite, joined today with my good buddy Skype. We're going to be talking about an unfound Easter egg on Revelations. Yes, I'm not kidding, an unfound Easter egg on a map that came out back in, 2016? And first and foremost, huge shout out to Manside Press over on the COD Zombies Reddit, who actually put together a really nice thread talking about exactly what this Easter egg is and how both Jason Blundell and Craig Houston kind of hinted at this many years ago. But what's going on, Skype? How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good, bro. Thanks for having me.
For sure, man. So, Manside Press talked about the Stop and Smell the Roses Easter egg that both Craig and Jason have been talking about. And essentially, over on Richtofen's grave in the spawn area, actually this is used for the first step of the Easter egg as well, you can notice there are roses on Richtofen's grave. Now, I'm sure people out there have probably noticed this years ago, but I think it is cool to look at this now after the events of Blood of the Dead and how the roses could have been hinting at Richtofen's death this entire time. And there are many other points we're going to be going through in today's video, and I'm really excited about it. So I guess what we could talk about, right, is Craig's words, stop and smell the roses. What do you think that meant? Was it really, inferring that Richtofen himself needs to smell the roses and realize that it's their fault that the multiverse is broken and he needs to die? Or do you think it was Craig literally telling us, right, we have to smell the roses because not only is that an interesting Easter egg, but it's also to tell us that we have to accept Richtofen has to die. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think it could honestly mean multiple things, but in the scenario he said it, I reckon it was just a more of to the community that you guys need to wake up and realize or smell the roses, that there's something in Revelation that is hinting to a future story detail, such as the roses that are next to the grave saying, oh, Richtofen is going to die, and whether they had it planned for blood or whatever, they definitely had that planned sometime in the story, because we know Richtofen's way to keep surviving puts them in this endless cycle, and it's not necessarily the best outcome for the universe or Monty. So.
Yeah, I like that, and I think looking at the words of both Jason and Craig, we can look at their official quotes here that I'll put on screen, and the first one here is from Blundell in an interview, and at the 27-minute mark, and I'll have this link down below, he does say that, I still feel there's still stuff in Revelations that people may not have clicked on the significance. It's really weird because from my point of view, and Craig Houston, we're like, that's obvious, why haven't they connected the dots or seen that one thing? And we're almost certain he was talking about the roses here, and also in this Reddit thread that was made by Manside Press, there's plenty of screenshots proving that many people in the community, especially on Reddit, were wondering what these roses meant. And I think after Blood of the Dead, a lot of people started noticing that they could have been inferring the Ether storyline or the broken cycle storyline we would eventually see in 2018's release of Black Ops 4. The next point is about the DICE Summit from 2015. Before Black Ops 3 even released, you've probably seen this image everywhere online. Many YouTubers have talked about this, but Richtofen was actually scratched out. So another point where Treyarch was hinting that Richtofen would eventually meet his demise at some point in the Ether story. So
yeah.
What'd you think about the DICE Summit event, Sky? At first, before Black Ops 3 came out, what did you think about Richtofen's fate at the time?
Well, I think that's partly why Craig and Jason would have said, oh, this is obvious, I'm surprised people haven't latched onto this. Like, the roses in Rev was really the second part of the Richtofen demise tease, because as DK said at the DICE Summon event before BO3 was released, we were given the 4 character profiles with Richtofen X'd out, and before Blood of the Dead came out, everyone knew or had ideas that there would be a character death within the crew, and a lot of people thought Nikolai was going to die because Craig said in one of the interviews, oh, Nikolai is my favourite character, and they were going to give Nikolai a bit of a different story, but it was almost the opposite, with Richtofen's death and then Nikolai becoming the main character in the group. So it was an interesting twist on something that the community was kind of catching on to a little bit, but it's no surprise that Craig and Jason thought the community would have realised that the roses was almost like the last hint, like, this is what's coming. in the second the broken cycle, almost.
Yeah, and I like how, I think we talked about this off screen earlier, this is essentially an Easter egg where you have to look at it literally and metaphorically, and it's even referenced a little bit in this Reddit thread that there's essentially 3 Easter eggs featured with the gravestones, right? You just have the characters' names on the gravestone, so that's an Easter egg hinting at their deaths. You have that as the first step of the main Easter egg, so that's an Easter egg in and of itself. And then finally, for the 3rd Easter egg, it's the roses there on his grave. So you essentially have 3 Easter eggs sitting right there in front of our faces, and the first 2 were pretty obvious, but that 3rd one with the roses was kind of overlooked. And looking at that, did Treyarch exactly know how blood was going to go down? Maybe, maybe not, but I think it is fair to say that at some point in the future of the Ether, Richtofen was meant to die, whether that meant Nikolai would take that leadership role, or whether or not that meant Richtofen would just die and then something else would happen. We don't know how far out they wrote the Broken Cycle story, right?
I definitely think that especially in my opinion anyway, up until Blood Unclassified, that the BO3 plus Blood Unclassified story was pretty set in stone, early BO3 development, and I think things got changed throughout BO4's cycle because of the issues they faced, but I'd definitely say the Blood ending cutscene, or a variation of it, was definitely the way they wanted to go. And personally, people don't like Blood, but I think Blood's one of the best maps we've ever had, and I think the cutscene is one of the best parts in it. Sure, the Easter egg is a bit patchy, it's not very solo friendly, but the cutscene itself is... I remember watching that for the first time, and they nailed it with that, and that's the kind of like emotional endings that Treyarch are just so good at. So
yeah, I think that cutscene's probably on my top 3 out of all the Ether cutscenes out there. It's phenomenal, and again, like the person says in this Reddit post, it's seemingly a small detail that actually had a super important meaning, but that also leads us to wonder, right, who left the roses for Richtofen, right? There's a lot of theories out there saying it could have been Great War Richtofen, could have been Samantha, and I think it almost isn't important to know who left the roses, it's more to know what the significance of those roses are, right? And exactly why they're there for his character, right?
Yeah.
But who do you honestly think left the roses there for Richtofen? What do you think about that?
Well, I know some people on Reddit were saying that it's possibly Great War Richtofen. I personally doubt that, because we know Great Richtofen's almost like hatred towards himself after he realizes, I've been doing this selfish thing for so long, wasting everyone's time and all this pain and suffering, all for selfish reasons, and that's why he's so cold to Blood of the Dead Richtofen in the end. So I don't think it's him. It's kind of hard to know, because there's not really anyone else that would be able to foresee that, unless it was maybe Nikolai comes back and after he knows everything. But yeah, you don't really know. It's hard to say.
You could even guess Nikolai, because the Alpha Omega intro, and to me it's not even an intro for the map, it's more of an Ether recap, and Nikolai kind of reciting his feelings towards being a leader now and witnessing the burden Richtofen once had. So I think it could actually be Nikolai, right? Nikolai realizes what kind of leader Richtofen was and is like, well, now I have even more respect for him, because I think before Gorod, Primus didn't really have much respect for Richtofen. They were listening to what he had to say, but were still pissed that they weren't being told the entire truth about the cycle, right? and that's the thing, right? It's like stop and smell the roses is, like we said earlier, is that meaning Richtofen needs to stop and smell the roses and realize that they are the reason why the multiverse is broken and they need to sacrifice themselves? Or is that just telling the community, hey, we need to smell the roses and realize that a big change needs to happen, which is the broken cycle? But yeah, I think Nikolai is probably the strongest theory there and a good fit for that. I don't know why Samantha would, because that's a little out of character. I don't think she has that kind of respect for Richtofen. That's a bit of a weird one, but I think it's definitely cool to think about.
And even time-wise, that wouldn't make sense for Sam to do it. That's the thing with like Nikolai. I can see it happening because he has the Chronorium in the end, and like you said, he's probably the first character to really ever empathize with Richtofen, because he's realized the burden that he's been carrying. But I also think that the quote that Craig said about smelling the roses could, like you said, be literal.
Metaphoric.
Yeah, metaphorically as well. About him, it could be about Richtofen as a character realizing, like, he needs to, his plan is selfish and it's not going to work, so it's a community thing for them accepting Richtofen has to die, and it's also an in-game character development point where Richtofen realizes that he has to do the hard thing, you know?
I also think it's worth noting that maybe with the roses too, they didn't even intend to have an explanation for who left the roses there. It's more of the symbolic meaning. Maybe they didn't have a person in mind, but then after the Broken Cycle story in Black Ops 4, you know, at least after Alpha Omega, they were like, maybe Nikolai is a good fit for leaving those roses there. But before that, it probably was just something that was more symbolic. And that also goes to say, well, like you were saying earlier, I think it was definitely set in stone to have Richtofen die and for Primus to pick up Ultimus. But I think the story after Classified definitely was kind of rewritten and kind of put in at the last minute. Yeah, definitely an alternate take on how the Ether would have ended, you know, ultimately in Black Ops 4 because of budget cuts, of course. But what do you think about the Tombstone in Blackout, right? That was actually seen during the beta of Blackout before Blood of the Dead even came out. So they really wanted to throw that in her face that Richtofen was going to meet his demise at some point in Black Ops 4.
It was almost like a reminder of like, hey, like this was also in Revelations. That's why, like I say, with Classified and Blood, it's like, it feels like a part of BO3's more connected to the BO3 story, so it's almost like Blood of the Dead could have fit as a DLC 5 or DLC 6 to Black Ops 3, right? But then you have to wait 3 years, and then they put it in Blackout. Unfortunately, like they do with a lot of things in Blackout, with cool-ass Easter eggs that no one gives a shit about because it's Blackout, that DK has to go in and solve all of them because none of the Blackout players care about
Nobody else is doing it, but the channel with 10k subs, man, no problem. People are going to do it.
So, I mean,
oh, man.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a shame how they did that. But, I mean, it was a cool teaser because when the beta for Blackout came out, everyone was interested in it, so it was definitely a good idea because everyone would have saw that and it was like a reminder. And I definitely that started some of the talk up about Nikolai or Richtofen dying in Blood of the Dead. So
I like your point, though, about Blood working as a Black Ops 3 map, and, you know, this is probably just one of my opinions that a lot of people might not agree with, right? I think with Zombies Chronicles, right, it does feature 8 remastered maps, and they're faithful remasters, right? Not much has changed besides the weapons, the gobblegum system, a couple of tweaks here and there, but besides that, it's the original maps. What if, as one extra bonus map to the first Zombies Chronicles, we could have saw Blood of the Dead? Like, what if they said, complete all of the OG Easter eggs in Zombies Chronicles, right? Ascension, Shang, Moon, and Origins, and you unlock a bonus map. And what if it was Blood of the Dead? How crazy would that have been? But like you said, Blood of the Dead would have fit perfectly as a BO3 map, right? It has the budget, it has that rich story that everybody loves, and then that would have been an even crazier cliffhanger and having to wait until Black Ops 4. But if you think about it, Chronicles came out in 2017, so Black Ops 4 wasn't too far away from that, so it would have been a great
perfect
cliffhanger.
Timing, right?
Yeah, perfect timing, and it would have also fixed the problem Revelations had, which was an unfortunately underwhelming ending, right? That was kind of how Revelations was perceived back in 2016. So Blood of the Dead could have fixed that. It would have been like, hey, Black Ops 3 just focused, you know, its entire story on the cycle. Let's break it and then make the community wait until the next installment to see what happens next with the broken cycle now that the cycle is broken. You know, you guys don't have to wait, right?
That's the thing as well, is like with before DLC 5 came out and the rumors started, the comic had came out with the Mob of the Dead alternate loading screen, the you know, that we had as around a similar time. And also because before DLC 5 came out, I was wondering, like, we didn't know there were going to be remakes. It could have been a whole new map for all we know. So I think what you're saying about having an original map and the 8 remasters,
it's a lot to ask for, but it would have been great.
yeah. I mean, maybe not. Maybe, you know, like or even just in a scenario where there weren't remasters, it was just that one map. It was definitely a possibility,
right?
And something, because remember, like, we knew that Mob Remastered was
in development.
So yeah, it was definitely on the table, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely on the table, and it was a part of the first batch of leaks we got from the Gaming Revolution. And what's funny about that is that even though Mob of the Dead wasn't featured in Chronicles, Blundell did address it in JC's video where they revealed Zombies Chronicles. He did say that there was a higher purpose for Mob of the Dead, but he didn't want to say too much about it. But yeah, it was definitely on the table, and I think originally DLC 5 would have been like a fan service type of map pack where it features 4 of the best zombie maps ever remastered in Black Ops 3. But then they realized, well, why don't we just do a pack that's celebrating Ultimus/Primus, and then we'll focus on the other maps in the next game. But looking at the gravestone in Blackout 2, I think it could have even just been telling us, hey, go back to Revelations and look at that Richtofen gravestone, right? Because only Richtofen's gravestone was in Blackout during the beta, right? And I think they actually removed that gravestone now. If you go to the cemetery now, I think you can't even find Richtofen there anymore. So not only was it foreshadowing Blood of the Dead, which would come out a couple months later after the beta, but it could have even been saying, go back to Revelations, look at Richtofen's gravestone, and boom, you can find another Easter egg that hasn't really been discussed yet, right?
And that's what I love about Treyarch, is like they really try to make everything canon. You know, like for ages people were like, oh yeah, Mob of the Dead's its own self-contained story. You know, it's like, no, this is getting tied in. And I think that's why Jason is such a clever. That's why I've got a lot of respect for him, is because like Zelensky was great, but he had a real like one way. This is the end. Story, but like Jason tied up all the things that Zelensky left loose as well, which was a very hard thing to do. And I think with the unfortunate stuff that's come out this year, that's what people shouldn't forget to give him credit for, is like he made the story, really, in my eyes.
Right, so when you said that, I just pictured Blundel's smirk from all of his interviews, man. But yeah, Treyarch essentially canonized everything they possibly could. Grief turned, which in a way is special and definitely works in the way they did it with the timeline, but at the same time, that kind of sacrificed some other cool things they could have done, like character customization options and alternate game modes, right? Because I do think there should be some stuff that isn't canon, right? Changing their outfits or changing some goofy things around the maps, right? Or having custom mutations and doing Easter eggs with them. There should be things like that that are just there purely for fun, which Treyarch could make clear is not canon to the story, but it seems like Treyarch does want to continue taking every single part of it seriously and making sure everything fits with the story just perfectly. But I just realized, too, they didn't do any more music videos after Dead of the Night, right? They didn't do an Ancient Evil one, if I'm not mistaken,
which
right?
is a real shame, because but that's just purely a budget thing, right? So,
that's a shame, too, because I think with the Broken Cycle, they definitely should have double down on those really cool cinematic trailers and the music videos which tell alternate takes of this Broken Cycle, because essentially the Broken Cycle could be interpreted as its own cycle, right? Maybe they go to Blood or go to Alpha and they die and have to restart the original cycle and break it again, right? Like,
imagine seeing a little clip where the Avogadro kills our crew in Alpha Omega, you know?
The Avogadro's an unutilized fucking character model in Black Ops 4, right? Put him in Blackout. Put him in the Transit remake. Do more. That model is fucking awesome, dude. Like, we need more of Avogadro, man. As much as I don't like him in Black Ops 2, he's great in Black Ops 4, and I think we purposely didn't kill him. We just sent him to Hanford, the new Hanford, right? We didn't send him to the old one. We sent him to the new one, right? And that pretty much wraps it up. Stop and Smell the Roses can finally be explained. And again, people out there probably could have known about this for years, but huge credit goes to Manside Press, hope I said that name right, over on Reddit, who kind of put all this information together, and I think is wonderful to know, because I think Treyarch has had a majority of the Broken Cycle story outlined for years now, but I think it's cool to go back to Revelations and see some of that foreshadowing. But any closing notes from your end?
Yeah, no, I do think I love it when stuff like this pops up, you know, in the community, and I think this is the best thing about Reddit, because there's a lot of toxic shit that goes on, but when stuff comes up, like, Reddit's always first, and there's always good discussion about it, and I think it's a good time for this to come up, because we're in a bit of a dead period, and little bits like this is what keeps it going, and it allows you to make like really good videos, which you're the only person in the community doing, mine, so I think you don't get enough credit for that as well. Like, dkdynamite is the only source out there right now that is making pure zombies like content covering everything. So yeah, I think it's really good of you that you're doing that and keeping the community updated.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, man. I think this is the slim example of when there is some good to come out of Reddit, right? There are people out there who are on that subreddit, on the COD Zombies Reddit, just there for the community to find things, talk about things, theorize, and that's beautiful. I think that's really wonderful to see, especially from a content creator's eyes. But that is about it. Thank you so much, Skype, for popping in, and peace out.